What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Young Rich Pod. Sorry, still got to get used to that type of intro. But today's going to be a great episode. Obviously, last night was the first game of the NBA Finals, so we're definitely going to be breaking that down today. Hopefully, y'all having a great day. I've had a great day. Yesterday was obviously the first day of the finals, so I'm pretty excited. We finally get that finals matchup that we've been waiting for. Unfortunately, obviously, we have to wait 2 days before we get another game in that series, which to me kind of is mind-blowing still. I honestly didn't even know that was still a thing. I obviously knew that we did that in the regular season, or early in the playoffs. You did the 2 days between each game, but I thought it was every other day after that. But again, I was wrong, which just blew my mind because I don't remember it being like that last year. But correct me if I am wrong. So we do got to wait 2 more days for some basketball. But this series was, I kind of expected it, right? For those of you who don't know, obviously, Boston blew out Dallas by 20 points yesterday. Again, this was one of those games where it was a toss-up for me, just because of the fact that, again, Luka typically struggles, and Luka and Dallas, this playoff run specifically, have particularly struggled game one. The only time where they had a game one victory was against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where that game they were just, playing at a completely different type of level, and then so to see them take a loss like this, it really wasn't surprising because, against the Clippers, they had this type of game one. Against OKC, they lost. Did they lose game one? They did lose game one. They either lost game one or they struggled game one. I'm pretty sure they lost game one. But again, so, this is something that I expected. If Boston was to take a game, it was going to be game one. The energy, the fans, you're at home, you're playing in the finals, you have a bunch of great shooters around you, and that's exactly how it played out. Listen, KP last night was one of the fifth player to come off the bench in the NBA Finals to have 20 points and 3 blocks off the bench, which was absolutely ridiculous. And KP was one of the first player to come off the bench and give you 11 points, 3.5 rebounds, and a block in a quarter, right? Which was to see that he came off the bench too, and he didn't play a complete quarter was absolutely crazy. But if you watch the shots he was making, he was just shooting over everybody. He just kept getting good mismatches, and nobody was really, keying in on him, right? And this was, for me, KP has actually had great history playing against Dallas and having successful games against Dallas, right? So he was definitely the X factor for this series. First time playing in the NBA Finals, first time playing in a important playoff game since he's been in Dallas, right? He missed the entire playoffs already. And so to see him step in like that and play that part of a crucial role, 37-point first quarter. Dallas was down 15 at the end of the first quarter, So they got out. The team Boston was shooting as a team, that first quarter again. We've seen this so much from Boston teams. They get so hot so early that they get that lead. And once you get that lead against this Boston team, it's just so hard for them to play catch up. But you also seen a situation where you've seen this from Boston again, is you start the game so hot. That first quarter, that first half is so hot. Your team is shooting lights out. Your playmakers, your stars are playing. Your playmaking, everything is falling defensively. You're there, right? And then you start to be so jump shot reliant, and you start to, not take advantage of mismatches, not get into the basket, and stuff like that. You start slowing down, right? Because you've seen this team do that, right? Yesterday, it went from a 30-point lead, an almost 30-point lead, to a 7-point game in a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, right? And it got very scary for Boston at a moment. I'm sitting here on my phone. I'm like, yo, am I about to take? Because in my head, as soon as Dallas was down, I took Dallas live money line on Flip. For, if you don't know, Flip, you could use a different currency, so it wasn't my actual money doing it. So I put it down, to just build up some coins on the little currency thing they had. And then I seen that they were within 7. And then almost in the back of my head, I was like, dude, should I really take Dallas live money line right now? Obviously I didn't. Not only because you don't want to do that into a game with that big of a lead, right? That's something that's just not smart, not responsible gambling unless you're a degenerate. But, so I'm sitting here and I'm freaking out because I'm like, dude, there's no way that Dallas is going to mount this comeback again, and almost a 30-point comeback, and Boston is going to, see these issues that we've seen previously strike them like that, right? But obviously, Boston answered back. They came back, hit some key crucial shots, and that 7-point lead, boom, you called a timeout, you went out there, had a run of your own, and after that, the game wasn't even close, I mean, listen, big shout out to Boston. I mean, everybody across the board really showed up. Drew Holiday, a guy who you've seen him, he had this bigger role in Milwaukee. He was supposed to be the number 3, the number 2 guy over there in Milwaukee, so he had a lot more offensive responsibility. And now you see him in a position where they want him to be the 4th, the 5th, sometimes the 3rd, highest scoring offensive guy on this team, right? And so you see it like that, and when you just see him play a lot better, a lot more efficient, better shot making, less shots, so better efficiency, taking better shots, not forcing up bad shots, and he's just playing with a lot better confidence and a lot less offensive workload on his mind, right? And then he can just focus up defensively because, I mean, listen, this is one of those series where you need your role players to step up, and they did that, and if you're playing a Boston team where you have Derek White 15, 2 and 5, Drew Holiday 12, 8 and 5, Tatum 6 for 16 from the field, 3 threes, 16, 11 and 5, Jaylen Brown 7 for 12, 22, 6 and 2. And KP, 20 points off the bench. When you have a Boston Celtics team playing like that, it just is such a huge issue because there is just you can't leave anybody open. You can't really pick on mismatches because everybody is making their shots. The most inefficient player yesterday was Jason Tatum, and that's your guy who's getting up a lot of shots. We know he likes to do that tough shot type of player, right? But Jason Tatum was your most efficient player yesterday offensively, and when you have that type of team around you, I mean, it could just get scary. And Luka, I mean, he didn't have a crazy night, but he had a Luka type game, 30, 10, and 1 assist, right? 10 rebounds, 1 assist, which was kind of mind-blowing yesterday. I seen that all over Twitter. 4 for 12 from 3 yesterday, so his shot was on. He was knocking them down, But, I mean, Dallas as a team, 7 for 27, 25.9% from 3 yesterday. Kyrie, 6 for 19 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3, did not really show up yesterday, and neither did anybody else. Derek Jones, the shots were not falling, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, they did, what they possibly could, being a center that needs the ball given to him, needs a playmaking guard like Luka to get it to him, right? But, I mean, the 3 ball just was not falling. At the end of the day, that's just how it was. Because even when they got on their run, they just started getting some stops. Luka was making tough shot after tough shot. You had P.J. Washington step up and make a couple buckets, and then you were able to climb back into this game, make it look like a competitive game, So... And it just so happens to be like that, right? So Luka obviously came to play, so I'm excited about game 2 because I doubt Dallas as a team, is going to play this bad again. And, again, when you have Boston playing this good all the way around, we've seen them do it several times. So I would like to see them, lock in more defensively because it looked like Boston was getting a lot of different buckets. They would just take advantage of KP's mismatches, and it was just, looked way too easy for Boston yesterday. And again, so there's a lot of things to look forward to game 2. Obviously, some adjustments. Who's going to be the first team to make some adjustments and, make it harder for these guys? Because, again, Dallas was a great defensive team, one of the best defensive teams in the playoffs. And once they made their whole roster reconstruction in the regular season, they became out as one of the top 5 defenses in basketball, And everyone kept saying, if you have Dallas as a top 5, top 3 defense, and you have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, this could be an unstoppable and a very scary team. And so you didn't see that yesterday, I definitely think they have a good opportunity that if Boston becomes so jump shot reliant, like we've talked about in the past, that they can make these runs and whether it's doubling up a lead, go on an 8-0 run to double up a lead, or you're down 8, down 10, you make a 10-0, 12-0 run or whatever, I definitely see that type of scenario playing out a couple times in this series. Just due to the fact that everybody in Boston loves to shoot a jump shot, even the only person I truly see get to the basket on a consistent basis is Drew Holiday, and that's kind of just because he's backdoor cutting, or he's under the basket and he's just a bigger body than everybody else, stronger than most people understand, and he gets out there, gets an easy bucket. But so I would definitely like to see obviously they need somebody to help them score offensively for Dallas. You need somebody to help out. You cannot have Luka being a one-man show in this type of series. Boston has had a lot of help. I mean, again, Jason Tatum being your 5th, 6th most inefficient scorer yesterday is just crazy to see. Sam Hauser came off the bench, was hitting his threes. Everybody in this game was hitting their threes. And when you have a team playing like that, it's just, And I also did hear this from a couple people on Instagram, on Twitter, which I thought was a smart idea. If you are Dallas, right, is you go out there and you press Jason Tatum, right? You don't let him take any threes. You don't let him settle for any of those jump shots, that mid-range jump shots, 3-point step back, fadeaways, all that stuff. You force him to attack. You force him to get to the basket. You pressure him on the perimeter to make sure he can't get those jump shots that he likes to take, and make him uncomfortable and force him to finish, right? Because we've seen this, he's not a very efficient finisher. He doesn't like to finish clearly with his jump shot and his shot selection, so that's something you could possibly take advantage of, press him so hard. I mean, just like Cleveland Cavaliers did, last year, is with having Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. You press so much at the perimeter, you make them go attack your big guys, your Jared Allens, your Evan Mobley's, right? You go trust those 2 7-footers right there to go stop anybody who comes to the paint, and they did that on a consistent basis. And I think Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively have proven they could do that, right? Not to the highest of extent, but they have the potential to do that, right? But, I mean, yesterday it was just Boston's game to win. I was leaning Boston for game 1 just because, again, Luka, Dallas as a whole have not had very good game 1s other than Minnesota Timberwolves, which is an anomaly, right? And then you've shown why, right? You came out here, it was slow. They did take a little bit of a break from playing basketball, so all that momentum they had built up kind of stopped for a little bit, and so I'd like to see them get back to it, because obviously we need somebody to step up. I don't know if this is going to be a Kyrie Irving like series like we've seen against Minnesota. Why? Because just Boston all the way around has guys that can guard, like KP can also guard in the perimeter. He's not like a perimeter liability, he can get out there and move his feet solid enough to where you can't really pick on him like that, And then you have obviously Derek White, Jrue Holiday, 2 of the best perimeter defenders in basketball, So this is definitely going to be a tough series for Kyrie Irving. Obviously, if nobody else is stepping up, he's going to have more opportunities to try to, do his thing. But somebody definitely needs to help Luka. We can't have another game like this, going down 2-0 on the road. And then, especially with Boston. I mean, Boston has been losing games at home this entire playoffs, bro. They lost game 2 to Cleveland. They should have lost game 2 to Indiana, right? And then what? Didn't they lose game 2 to Miami? They did lose game 2 to Miami in Boston, So, again, there's a chance here. Like the numbers, the statistics, everything, the flow of the series, like how Boston has played this entire playoff run, says game 2 is Dallas' opportunity to get back in the series, tie it up 1-1, going back to Dallas. And when you're sitting there 1-1 going back to Dallas, you're sitting in a very good spot, very comfortable spot, right? So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see who makes adjustments and who makes some changes defensively and offensively for Dallas, to get some more open looks for some other guys, because 1 assist from Luka Doncic is absolutely mind-blowing to me, So we'll definitely see it. Definitely looked like Dallas was a little bit, some people I would have liked to see them take some shots that they just didn't look confident in taking. Again, I don't know if it's because the energy, the morale was low with Boston going on a crazy run, but halfway through the third quarter, it looked like everybody other than Luka Doncic was not confident in their ability to score or play basketball, So I definitely like to see that change going forward, and then hopefully they can make this a competitive series and we don't see no more blowouts like this. But the next topic of discussion of today's episode is obviously it's been all over Twitter. First things first take everywhere. It's been everything. Lakers head coaching search for Don Hurley, head coach of the UConn men's basketball team, right? And listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I am a college basketball guru. Like, I know everything men's college basketball, right? I am very mid when it comes to college basketball, men's college basketball specifically, right? Like, I pay attention to March Madness more than anything else, because March, again, is like when everything happens. You get all the good games. You get the teams who are trying to make miracle Cinderella runs that you're looking for. You're looking for those upsets. You're looking for those NBA prospects to blossom and to really show out in the tournament. You get the best basketball, right? In the regular season, you see a lot of teams just dominate these lower end teams in their conference, in their division, and things like that. So it's like not as much, you don't really get to see much. And then you have those odd Zach Edey stories, seniors, 4th-year seniors that are going out there and dominating the tournament, So I'm not going to sit here and act like I am a college basketball guru by any means, but Don Hurley and what he's done at UConn as a head coach has been phenomenal. They've been one of the most prestigious college programs in basketball, in men's college basketball. He's been one of the best college basketball coaches in history. And from what I've heard and from what I've seen, right, watching old UConn film and things like that, UConn basketball, is this offense requires a lot of off-ball movement. It's a lot of drawn-up plays, screening for other defenders and all these different scenarios, right? A lot of movement, right? It's a very old school style offense, right? Which is one thing that people were talking about, like the pairing with LeBron. You put LeBron in an offense where he has to work a little bit more off ball with the ball not in his hands, which is something that he's never done before, right? Why? Because he's LeBron James and he's a playmaker. He's a great playmaker, right? So that's not anything you ever did. Typically, you're putting the ball in his hands and making him call the plays and run the offense and things like that, right? So, and I also understand. And in my mind, right, LeBron James at 40, right, is just like you want to make it as easy as possible for him to play basketball, right? And this year, you've seen him be his most efficient from the three-point line this season, right? You've seen him also kind of like know when to press the issue offensively and when he needs to go get a bucket. He kind of paces himself through the game because, again, he's 40 years old. He should be out here having to play 35-plus minutes a game for us to win a game, right? It shouldn't have to be like that, but the plus-minus rating when he's not running our point guard, when he's not running our one, and not running the plays, running the offense through him, it's not as successful. It's not as efficient. Like, we've seen that. The numbers say that. The numbers generate that. We've seen it, right? We've seen so many samples of that when LeBron James is not in the lineup. Our offense tends to get stagnant, not much movement, not much, playmaking ability from these other players that are forced to step up, But I think of it as a good situation, right? Because if you bring in a guy who can get guys like Austin Reeves open, right? A guy like D'Angelo Russell, who maybe he's not the best postseason performer, right? But in the regular season, you have the opportunity to get these guys open, get these guys in the flow of things, right? And Austin Reeves is a guy who I think he can create for himself. But if you're giving Austin Reeves more open looks, that's just better for him. Not only he can get more volume of shots, but I trust Austin Reeves to play off the ball, to catch and shoot, to create for himself, right? And then if you add another aspect of that to our team, which is something we never really did, it was kind of just a lot of ISO ball, LeBron James one-on-one, D'Lo, if he got hot, it was one-on-one, Austin Reeves one-on-one, and then the LeBron James and AD pick and roll, so we were a very limited offense. So I think bringing in somebody who's been running an offense to a T on the collegiate level at the second highest level in the world, right? I think that's something good for him, something LeBron can benefit off of, right? And if you get a guy who likes to draw up a lot of off-ball plays and LeBron's being able to make just a bit more to allow other teammates to get good shots, it just makes everything easy off him. Lowers the offensive load. Obviously you got to surround us with some shooters to be able to do this type of stuff, right? So we'll definitely see how that goes, right? And then one of the other things that everybody's been talking about, and I've even seen clips and him talking about how he runs his program at UConn, is Hurley is a military, old school type, fashion type coach, right? Which is something that I'm a fan of. Like, old school basketball, you really see people get the best of their players because they coach them hard. Like Greg Popovich talked about Tim Duncan. The reason Tim Duncan is going to be great, the reason the San Antonio Spurs are going to be a great organization, we're going to win championships, and we're going to be a dynasty is because the best player on our team is the most coachable player on our team. He's letting Popovich get in there, get in his face, grill him in front of everybody, right? And that's something you need. I don't care who you are, right? You need somebody that's going to go out there and is going to get the best out of you and to make you elevate your game. You know what I'm saying? We've been waiting for someone, and if LeBron James can't handle that, then I'm okay with that, right? Okay, so I'm sitting here, I'm okay with that. If he has to go somewhere else because he's not comfortable with that, I would like my program to be ran like that. I would like to get more out of these younger guys, out of these rookie guys who come in, these younger players who don't get a lot of PT, but they develop their game with him, and they develop themselves in the NBA. Even if it means we're not going to be a very great team next year because LeBron doesn't want to be around with a hard-nosed coach, you know what I'm saying? Because if you see a head coach, get on your best player, these other guys who are worried about getting coached hard, they're not going to take it the wrong way. They're going to eat it. Why? Because LeBron James is taking it. But if LeBron James is not setting the tone and saying, I want to be coachable, I want to be better, for the age I'm at, right? I want to be better. I need to work on some other stuff, my outside shots, some other types of moves, you know what I'm saying? And so you have to do that. And a guy like Anthony Davis, who I heard this, which was a brilliant take, okay, shout out to Nick Wright, is a guy like Anthony Davis, a guy who, before he got to LA, he was seen as one of the best, his projection was to be one of the best bigs in basketball, one of the best players in basketball. He was on the path, on the projection to be one of the best players in the NBA, right? And he kind of hit a little, he fell off a little bit. He comes back to LA. He looks like one of the best bigs in basketball. When we won the chip in 2020, he was the most dominant player in that series. You know what I'm saying? When we played up against Denver, we matched up against Denver, he was the most dominant player in that series, right? So when you have a guy who him at a phenomenal level right now, defensive player of the year voting, he's a nominee every year. He's one of the best defensive bigs, one of the best defensive players in basketball. His rim protection is elite. His ability to score is elite. His ability to rebound is elite, right? He's looking at himself sitting at the third to fourth best big man, depending on where you want to put Giannis and Embiid, how you want to sort those guys out, right? But at absolute worst, he's the third best center in the league. You know what I'm saying? And when you get a guy like Dan Hurley who comes in here and he's forcing the best, he's asking the best out of your players, your star player he's been a little bit underwhelming at times. In the playoffs, he played his best basketball. Yes, something we've been waiting for him to do, and he did it, right? And now, if you get a guy like this who's going to come in here and push the best out of all your players, ask for more from every single one of your players, there's another level that AD can get to, and a more elite, superstar, top 10 player type category he can get to if he's pushed in that direction. And I think having someone who's going to go in there and ask the best out of him, make him just change his mindset and make him become a better player overall. I see no problems with this, because I think AD, when he's at his best, peak AD is one of the best players in basketball, right? And I truly believe that with what he can do offensively and defensively, right? Back when he used to have his little mid-range shot, I don't care what anybody said, when he had that little mid-range shot and he was still attempting hit, he was out there, he was shooting that thing over anybody, right? And then everyone says you got to start playing like a traditional big man. You need to go out there, you need to get back in the paint and go dominate down low, right? You need to go down there and bang. So now he goes down there and now he needs to bang, and now his mid-range game is gone. But if he could have a mixture of mid-range game and banging down low, it's just a totally different AD that we can see, And if Dan Hurley is the guy who's going to force the most out of AD, I am all for it, right? But obviously, when you hear Dan Hurley, one of the biggest things is that you see from him is the possibility of development in these younger players. Maybe we're not going to be the best team in LA for a while. Maybe we're not going to be competitive for a while if LeBron and AD both want to get out of here, because we're not going to be competing. We're going to be trying to develop in a way like that, right? But you have guys like Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, right? You have these young Max Christie. We have these our first round PG out of my Indiana. We have these players who can develop into something, right? They have the potential to be something great. Max Christie, you've seen flashes. Austin Reeves, you've seen what he can be, And if you can get them to another step, help them develop as a player, our team can just be better, outside of LeBron James and AD, which is something you need when you want to make these playoff runs. You have your superstars and you want your supporting cast to be elite, right? So I think this could be a good opportunity for our guys. And even if everyone's talking about Bronny James coming to LA, being drafted, whether it's late second round, late first, whatever, getting Bronny James and putting him with Don Hurley and making him develop, getting the best out of him, pushing him to become a better player is just something that I just see as great. That's what you really want to be doing. That's what Greg Popovich has been doing in San Antonio for so long. That's why you're seeing great players after great players come through that system, and Greg Popovich has been what he's been, Tim Duncan was great because he was coachable, so again, I think it could be a great opportunity for our team, Obviously, I've also heard this scenario be around that, maybe this is because Los Angeles is not known for wanting to pay head coaches the big buck, right? Tyronn Lue could have been a head coach for us. We didn't want to pay him the big bucks. We lowballed him, right? And we've never been known to pay the head coach the big bucks, right? JJ Redick has apparently been, from what we're hearing, right? Sources are saying the offer was a little bit low. The money was not there for what JJ Redick wanted, right? And now possibly we're using this as a situation where now we could use Don Hurley as some eye candy, make the media talk about Hurley, about us trying to bring in a college head coach into the NBA, right? Bring some noise, bring some buzz, and then all of a sudden we break it off and just pay JJ Redick a couple extra bucks and make him feel a little bit happier, and then make everybody think, oh, this whole time we tried to get Dan Hurley, but we couldn't, so we settled with JJ Redick, So I've heard situations like that, which is interesting because we got to see how that goes. JJ Redick talked about he's not going to talk about anything until after the finals is over, after his gig at with ESPN is over, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of storylines building up for the Lakers, whether, we get JJ Redick, whether we get Hurley, and so again, I don't really know who else is out there to really get. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know about every head coach that's waiting at home for a phone call to come coach, right? So, as of right now, out of the two options we got, I like what they are. I like what they got. I like JJ Redick specifically because of his ball knowledge. But like everybody else has said, it's like a whole Steve Nash situation. Just because he's a very high IQ player, intellectual player, and he performs at a great level at the college level, at the NBA level, and you put him in as the head coach, it doesn't mean he's going to be a great head coach. Sometimes it doesn't always correlate that way. So it's definitely interesting to see. I'd rather play it safe than go in the wrong direction with the coach, because I hear a lot of people always nagging on head coaches, like the Los Angeles Lakers fan base. I'm a Lakers fan, right? So I understand where it's coming from, but when everybody wants to blame our head coaches for everything wrong and why we're losing, right? They want to blame everybody for why we're losing. Our head coach was not the reason we lost to Denver and almost got swept again this year, right? Like, it was not his fault. It was not his fault. D'Angelo Russell went out there and shot 0 for 8. Right, for in 2 games, right? So there's a lot of situations where people want to blame our head coaches for the substitutions, defensive method. But if all this is so easy, you know what I'm saying? You can go out there and do it. That's really the way I look at it. So when it comes to head coaching and people talking about head coaching and always making excuses for head coaching being the reason why we're not winning, right? It bugs me. It rubs me the wrong way, right? And unless you're truly just a terrible head coach, and everybody knows you're a terrible coach with what you're doing, like, it just makes no sense what you're doing, that's a different story. But when you're, having some success, but you're just not at the level that we're expected to have, right? And blaming the coaches for everything that's wrong with us, it's not it. Right? Like, these guys go on Twitter, all these Laker fan pages are always blaming the coaches. Like, what if it's AD's fault for not playing like he did this year, last 2 years? What if it's LeBron's fault for being too, me, I gotta do this, because there was a lot of times where I seen LeBron be playing, and LeBron was playing like a lot of me basketball back when we had Russ, right? And so, he just looked like, oh, I'm gonna have a great season. We look pretty bad, I don't have any hope in our team. So he's just out here trying to get buckets, trying to reach his little scoring title, right? So there's a lot of situations like that, and so we'll never really know. But I also defend coaches when it comes to stuff like that, because we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in the locker room. We don't know if AD and LeBron are like, no, you cannot coach me up, coach. You can't. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm LeBron James. I'm AD. We don't know any of that, right? And you could say whatever you want, but nobody knows 100% what's going on in the locker rooms, regardless what you hear in post-game interviews and from sources, right? So all that stuff. But the next topic of discussion is obviously the Trevor Lawrence extension, right? And this has been something that's been going on for a very, very long time, and it's something that's about time that I really stepped into and discussed, because in Trevor Lawrence extension, this is a guy who, he was 8-3, right? 8-3 as a quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars before he got hurt, right? They were the top team, number 2 team in the AFC behind the Ravens before they lost, and before Trevor Lawrence had multiple injuries, bruised ribs, concussion, and all this other stuff, and was just really banged up to finish out the season. And then the last game of the season, they needed to win, and they lost to Tennessee, right? So he did not look right that last 7 games of the year, right? Did not look good for Jacksonville or for Trevor Lawrence, right? So I'll give him the benefit of the fact that he was injured, right? Last year, he did not look particularly great, right? He didn't look phenomenal. Didn't look out of this world, He was okay, he wasn't great, but they were 8-3, so they were 8-3, you showed them the respect because they were 8-3, and then you look at what he's done to this franchise, right? Listen, you got a guy who went to one of the worst franchises in NFL history, right? We've seen how many times this team is the first overall pick, second overall pick, third overall pick, and they just are absolutely terrible. And ever since they got rid of Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye and Blake, they went through all that Blake Bortles era, right? They went to the AFC Championship game and they never went back, So there was a lot of, Jacksonville needed something, and Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be their guy. You had the whole Urban Meyer situation, and where you didn't play good. Trevor Lawrence looked terrible, so people started questioning Trevor Lawrence's ability. You give him a clean swipe for that because, Urban Meyer did a terrible job with what he was trying to do out there, right? sophomore year, Trevor Lawrence comes in, he becomes a guy who leads his team to the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? He wins a playoff game in Jacksonville, which hasn't been done since those Jalen Ramsey days. And I understand the first half of the season didn't look great. Second half of the season won 7 out of their last 9 or something like that. Ended up winning the playoffs. Ended up 4 INTs in the first half. Ended up win a playoff game against the Chargers, who just looked like an absolute choke show. Against one of the up and coming QBs in Justin Herbert, who was a guy who's supposed to be out there competing with Mahomes and all these other top tier guys. So I have a lot of respect for Trevor Lawrence. He has yet to put together a full season. So I understand on the issues with trying to pay a QB 5 years, 4 years, right? Because typically QBs want the 5. They want the 5-year deal, right? They don't want 4. They want 5. And so I understand the issue with paying a guy guaranteed money. Typically, it's how it is nowadays. $50 million, $45 million a year and stuff like that, right? So I get it. 5 years is a long commitment, right? And as it is, right? 5 years is a long time with a team. Especially if you're not sure about a quarterback, that's the worst things to do. Because then you're looking like Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. You're in a bid. You trade a lot of draft capital, a lot of salary cap. You're in the dead cap now for years to come. And you can't move off that guy, right? You're stuck with those guys because you committed, because you invested, right? And you don't want to do that same situation. So when I'm sitting here looking at Trevor Lawrence, and I've seen he's never had a perfect year, a great year all the way through, But there's several quarterbacks that are like that, Tom Brady's had some years where he didn't look great to start the season off, but he got the stuff together second half of the season, winning Super Bowls, Trevor Lawrence, again, if he wasn't injured for the second half of the season, he'd probably be in the playoffs, again, back-to-back years as the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? And when you look at the aspect of, at absolute worst, you were 1 game away from making the playoffs. After you're 1 game away from making the playoffs, and it was a down year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a win. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, they don't know about winning. They don't know about any of that. They've had some of the worst luck I've ever seen. When it comes to quarterbacks they've drafted and moves they made way back then, right? So I've never seen this team winning games, and when your down year is 1 game away from the playoffs, literally you played against Tennessee, you win, you're in, but you lost, so you were 1 game away from the playoffs, and all this stuff just did not go your way. That's a win to me, right? And when you have a guy who a good year was winning a playoff game and your down year is 1 game missing away, and he was injured for the last 6-7 games, no matter how unsure you are, I would still pay this guy. Why? Because Trevor Lawrence, again, 8-3 before he ended up getting hurt last year, missed a couple games, was playing through injuries. Obviously, he had to play the last game against Tennessee with multiple injuries because he had to. There's no other way he was going to sit out, right? He chose he's a playmate. He was going to sit through it and do it, right? You compare him to something like that where he just had an unfortunate couple injuries, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at his year, the year he won the playoffs, he goes out there, throws 4 INTs against the San Diego Chargers, a team that was supposed to be up and coming again. And you have one of the best quarterbacks in football in Justin Herbert of the future. And then you go out there, and then you go out there and you win the game, 31 straight points, and you win that game, in the second half. It was just absolutely crazy. So you pay this guy whatever you is, because he has uplifted your Jacksonville Jaguars as a team that they're looked at. You're looked at a respectable team. You're looked at a team to win the division, right? So, but at the same time, if you're 100% not sure, or you're you're sitting at if you're 100% sure this guy can get you to the playoffs, you invest in him, right? Regardless, because Jared Goff proven he can get them to the playoffs, right? He can prove he can play winning football, and he just got paid $50 million a year, right? Kirk Cousins, a guy who was coming off an Achilles injury, who's 35, $45 million a year. Kyler Murray, $46 million a year. Deshaun Watson, $46 million a year. It's just the value of the quarterback is so high that I promise you this. If you don't sign Trevor Lawrence, somebody else will do it. I promise you that. The Raiders will do it. The Las Vegas Raiders will do it. If you go in the next year, you franchise tag him, and he doesn't want to be there because you don't want to pay him, we will trade that draft capital to go get him. I promise you that. There are 15 teams in the league that will trade for Trevor Lawrence right now. Okay? I promise you that. I promise you that. Minnesota would give up J.J. McCarthy and a couple picks to get Trevor Lawrence right now. because he would elevate their team from what it is right now, right? And that's all you could ask. So if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, I sit down here, I pay him, whether it's $50 million is a decent deal, paid less than Jared Goff, won't be paid more than Burrow, won't be paid more than Herbert, Hurts in that territory, that's fine. $50 million, $48 million, you get paid a little bit more, I'm okay with it. You pay that guy what he did because he has turned that franchise around with the help of Doug Peterson and everybody else being in there, the players he's had around him, right? But he has helped uplift this team and made it look as a true playoff contender for the last 2 years, right? Which is all that you could ask for. Making the playoffs, especially in the start of a young career, right? And then obviously you go step by step from there. But you pay Trevor Lawrence what he wants. Make him happy because he's not going to be asking for $55 million. He's not going to be asking for 60. He's probably going to be asking somewhere from 50 to 52, right around that range, Jared Goff range, right, which is respectable. Tier 10, fringe top 10 quarterback, which is what Trevor Lawrence is sitting at right now, at his worst. 10 to 12 fringe. So that's a good payday for him. And you just added Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., who I expect big things from of. So I like this offense going forward, and I expect big things for this team. And Trevor Lawrence, just pay him, get it over with, move on, and let's just look to a better tomorrow, right? Because he is a quarterback of the future, whether it's not for you guys or somebody else. And then last topic of discussion for today, okay, is the Dallas Cowboys, right? I mean, you look at all these situations, all the drama coming from this club. You have CeeDee Lamb not showing up to the OTAs, Justin Jefferson just got paid, so now he's banging on the door for being the highest paid non-receiver, non-quarterback in football. You have Dak Prescott. You're going to be in 2 years of dead cap, $40.46 million of dead cap in 2025 if you don't resign Dak Prescott. But you know what? You said screw it. I'm with it. I'm not resigning Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's got to prove it, right? Which is again, it's a great thing to see, right? And then if it doesn't work out, you have somebody else go spend money on him, and they could be stuck in mediocreness. Stuck in regular season success for the next 5 years, right? But when you look at this Dallas Cowboys team, I mean, listen, you have the two of the most important players you need, right? Which is a wide receiver one, a true wide receiver one, which is a high volume guy in CeeDee Lamb. You have a generational pass rusher who's been compared to Lawrence Taylor, right? In Micah Parsons, right? And that Micah Parsons, again, we pay DNs. We pay defensive guys. Defensive player of the year type caliber players. That's who the guys that we pay. That's one of the most important positions in football. Why? You have to get after the quarterback. The best quarterbacks, you need to get after them. You need to pressure them. And how else better to do it is to have a generational talent at pass rusher who is a versatile defender who can move all the way around, play linebacker, play DN, play inside, outside, standing up with the hand in the ground, So you lock in the two most important guys, and so I'm waiting for CeeDee Lamb to get out here and get extended, right? I expect him to be 35, right around that range, whether it's a little more, a little less, whatever, but I expect him to be right there, right? So, listen, you have to, especially if you're going to go into the non-Dak Prescott era in Dallas, you're going to not re-sign him this offseason because you have a disappointing year. You let's just say at worst, you don't make the playoffs. Dak Prescott has the worst year of his career. You let him go. You don't pay anything. You're already going to be in dead cap. You restart with a rookie quarterback. And a rookie quarterback, what do they need? They need some foundation. And what better way to have foundation than one of the best pass rushers, defensive players in football, and to have one of the best receivers in football? So you're putting the future in a good spot. You have two of the key pieces locked down and paid for the next 4 to 5 years, right? And then you look at Mike McCarthy, who he's on the hot seat. You don't know how it's gonna look for him after this offseason, whether it's gonna be a lot of blame on Dak, whether it's gonna be we're gonna rebuild and get a guy who wants to come here and rebuild this franchise around. We'll start with the rookie quarterback, So that's questions that all gonna happen. I mean, DC, Mike Zimmer, he's on the hot seat, 1 year deal. It's we win a Super Bowl, you can come back, happy man. You can go apply for a head coach job, whatever. But if you don't win a Super Bowl, or at least make it to the Super Bowl, none of that matters, right? So Jerry Jones is really about to clear house, and it's about time, right? You've been sitting in mediocrity for years, for almost a decade, for multiple decades. Decades is 10 years. Decades is 10 years. So multiple decades, 20 years, 30 years. You've been sitting at mediocrity since the Aikman era has been over, Oh, man. How much I hate the Cowboys. How much it brings me joy to see them fail every other year, 30 years. Been a very, very long time. But, and then also, one of the things I also want to discuss about this Dallas Cowboys situation is you look at a guy like Bill Belichick, right? A guy who can tighten up the defense, who can be his defensive-minded coach. He's going to get the best out of your defensive players. And then you look at him, and he could really help develop a quarterback, right? He'll bring in the right guys to take care of him and do all these things, right? But you've seen him do it before. He's been able to do it with Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Castle, Tom Brady early in his career. You've seen him be able to do it with game manager type quarterbacks who come in, and he just requires the bare minimum of them until they develop themselves and become better quarterbacks. But you've seen him have success with middle to lower end QBs in the NFL, right? So I do expect that as a possibility because, you go out here, you need to restart. You really need to get a rookie quarterback. You need a defense that's going to really lock in and is going to really, help you win games and give this rookie quarterback the best chance to succeed. Bill Belichick is the guy that can do that, right? And on whether you want to hire him as be the GM and complete control of the team, that's a different conversation, right? Because we know Jerry Jones is very hand-on with stuff like that. But that's definitely a question that should be brought up, right? Because you had this defense last year who was supposed to be generational. It was supposed to be one of the best defenses in football, and it was getting gashed, every other day. Run defense was not that tight. Defensively, I know you're missing Trevor Diggs, but, Deron Bland was all-pro this year, but he was the one getting picked on the most. It was a Trevon Diggs 2.0 situation. Trevon Diggs had the most INTs as a cornerback, yes, but he also allowed the most yards as a cornerback in the league, right? Deron Bland, same situation, So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered about this defense, and having a guy like Bill Belichick, I trust him to get the most out of these guys for what he's done in New England, right? He's always had a great defense. He's always got the new guys to buy in. He's got the right amount of vets to help, develop these younger guys and help them buy into the Patriot way, right? So I would trust Bill Belichick to take over a team like that, right? If it doesn't work out, especially because I'm at this current situation, there's nobody really a better situation. There's nobody else. There's nobody else that I could see and really have faith in bringing them back. But let me know what y'all think about today's video. It's going to be a little bit shorter today just because not a lot of news going on today, But again, I'm still active. Here's going to be my episode. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. If y'all liking it, if y'all watching this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to like and follow the show and give it a 5-star rating. It helps the algorithm and helps me get more views and eyes on this channel. And if you like this show, tell your friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. All right? And if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Road to 5K starts continues, right? We're working on it, almost 2,000 currently, which is great to see. Been more active on TikTok, so appreciate y'all for showing support on TikTok. But with that being said, YoungRich, I'm out.